This is the story of a dramatic betrayal in Mexico's world of drugs. It started with a trick. Ismael Mayo Zambada was one of the most powerful leaders in the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico. He thought he was going to look at land in northern Mexico for new airstrips. He had been the most wanted man in Mexico for years. And unlike many cartel bosses, he had never been arrested. People often said he was a ghost, always one step ahead of the police. But on that day, things did not go the way he expected. According to US officials, El Mayo was invited to a meeting near Culiacan. Joaquín Guzmán López, one of the sons of Joaquín El Chapo Guzman, had called him there. El Mayo trusted him enough to go. When he entered a dark room, armed men suddenly climbed in through a window. They grabbed him, put a hood over his head, tied his hands, and carried him out. He was taken to a private plane waiting at a remote airstrip. Inside, he was zip-tied to a seat and given a drink with sedatives. When the plane landed, he was no longer in Mexico. He had been flown across the border and handed over to US authorities in Texas. US prosecutors say Guzman Lopez helped set up this entire operation. Some reports describe it as a kidnapping. And when the news reached Mexico, it caused a political storm. Mexico's president at the time accused the United States of being involved. But the US denied this.
First of all, Joaquín Guzmán voluntarily surrendered. Secondly, the evidence we saw when we arrived in Santa Teresa, New Mexico at the airport is that El Mayo was taken there against his will. There were no resources from the United States involved in that operation. It wasn't a US plane, it wasn't a US pilot, and it wasn't our agents or our people in Mexico. This was an operation between the cartels where one handed over the other.
But many experts said it would have been impossible to carry out such a capture without American knowledge. Soon after, Guzman Lopez himself was arrested. Both he and El Mayo were taken into custody after landing that same plane in Texas.
As you've heard, drug kingpin Ismael Zambada Garcia, also known as El Mayo, has confessed to a lifetime of crime in service to the Sinaloa cartel, a foreign terrorist organization. Thanks to the relentless work of our prosecutors and our federal agents, El Mayo will spend the rest of his life behind bars. He will die in a U.S. federal prison where he belongs. El Mayo was one of the most prolific and powerful drug traffickers in this world. His partner was El Chapo. They were co-founders of the Sinaloa cartel. They brutally murdered multiple people and flooded our country with drugs. Their reign of terror is over. He will never walk free again.
Months later, in a US courtroom, Joaquín Guzmán López now pleaded guilty. He admitted that he helped run large parts of the Sinaloa cartel's drug business. He also admitted helping kidnap his father's former partner El Mayo by tricking him into boarding the plane. As part of his plea, he accepted that he was involved in producing and smuggling huge amounts of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, marijuana, and fentanyl into the United States. He is part of Los Chapitos. It is the group of El Chapo's sons who took over parts of the cartel after their father was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Let's understand the family tree of El Chapo. Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán was born in a poor rural part of Sinaloa in Mexico. He had numerous siblings, including Miguel, Angel, Aureliano, Arturo, Emilio, Armida, and Bernanda Guzman Loira. Over the years, El Chapo Guzman married several women and fathered numerous children. His children would eventually become involved in his criminal organization, the Sinaloa Cartel. With his first wife, Alejandrina Salazar Hernandez, he had Ivan Archibaldo, Jesus Alfredo, Alejandrina Giselle, and Cesar Guzman Salazar. His second wife was Griselda Guadalupe Lopez Perez, with whom he had Ovidio, Joaquin, Griselda Guadalupe, and Edgar Guzman Lopez. Edgar was killed in 2008. Guzman's third and most well-known wife is Emma Coronel Aspuro, with whom he shared twin daughters, Emily Guadalupe and Maria Joaquina Guzman Coronel, who were born in 2011. After his final imprisonment and extradition to the US, four of his sons, Ivan Archibaldo, Jesus Alfredo, Ovidio, and Joaquin, collectively known as Los Chapitos, reportedly assumed significant control of the Sinaloa cartel. Ovidio and Joaquin have since been arrested and extradited to the US. For years, the Sinaloa cartel has been one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. It began with people like El Chapo and El Mayo, who built a massive drug empire stretching from Mexico to the United States. Over time, the cartel changed. It expanded its roots, its partners, and its business. And in recent years, its biggest money maker has become fentanyl. It is a synthetic drug that is far stronger than heroin. Fentanyl has created a serious crisis in the United States. It is now the leading cause of death for Americans between 18 and 45 years of age. A small amount can be deadly. US officials say the Sinaloa cartel, especially Los Chapitos, played a major role in making and smuggling it.
Over the last 3 decades, El Mayo and his accomplices made billions of dollars, hundreds of millions each year they were making, by bringing poisonous drugs into our country. The Sinaloa cartel initially built their businesses with cocaine, but then under El Mayo's leadership, they turned to heroin, they turned to fentanyl. They purchased fentanyl precursor chemicals from China. They made the drug in Mexico and flooded it into our communities, killing our kids.
So when Guzman Lopez stood in court and said guilty, it was not only about kidnapping El Mayo. It was also about years of drug trafficking that has caused thousands of deaths in the United States. His plea deal means prosecutors will not seek the death penalty. He is expected to avoid a life sentence, but he still faces many years in prison. Meanwhile, the capture of El Mayo and the betrayal behind it has changed the balance of power inside the cartel. For decades, El Chapo and El Mayo ran the group together. After El Chapo's arrest, the Chapitos began fighting for more control. With El Mayo gone, their rivalry exploded. Violence broke out in Sinaloa as different groups tried to take over what was left of his operations. Mexico's government has struggled to control this internal war. Officials even said they were looking at possible treason charges against anyone involved in the kidnapping of El Mayo. The old leaders in Mexico's drug world are falling now. The younger generation is fighting among themselves. And while these battles continue, the flow of drugs, especially fentanyl, has not stopped. The global drug trade keeps evolving, and If no concrete action is taken, this cycle of violence and death will continue. That's all in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We will see you next week with more raging issues. Until then, it's goodbye from all of us in the Delhi newsroom. This is Mark Lynn signing off. Take care and stay safe.